I welcome you to our daily Bible study. I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and today we're going to continue in the 17th series entitled Mind War. Today's lesson, Understanding the Battle. I want to come again from the text that we used the other day, Isaiah chapter 26 and verse 3. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee. When we come to understand the battle, we come to realize that the reason the mind must be guarded is simply because there are agents of the powers of darkness that understand how the mind works. And in understanding how the mind works, they understand how to manipulate it, how to shift the perspective. The Bible uses the term for mind in this scripture, yetzir, and it deals with to form or to fabricate. It's almost as if it's speaking of an author that shapes and builds and who formulates statues out of clay or out of granite. It's a carving process and a developmental process that leads us into the avenue of creating. And so when we speak of the mind as a source of creation, we're talking about creating the thought processes that literally will shape how we see, how we understand, how we perspectivize. And in understanding how we perspectivize, then we can come to understand what aspect of the mind, what dimension of the mind brings us the most problems. How are we being attacked? Are we being attacked in our intellect? Is it that when God speaks, because we are overwhelmingly trying to use logic and critical thinking, that in many cases it doesn't make sense to believe God for something that cannot be substantiated through science or through the natural eye? Or are you fought through your emotions? When the emotions are involved, whatever arises, whatever you see, whatever you experience, it can cause you to respond in such a way that you move out of the context of the word, that you move outside the context of serving God or ministry or even the church. It is very important then that we come to realize that if our mind can be preoccupied or utilized, then the mind can be shaped and the mind can be turned, and the mind can cause behaviors to become directly in opposition against God. And so he will keep you in perfect peace only if the mind is stayed or leaning or fixed upon him. And that's because when you develop a level of trust, you're also developing a level of faith. There are three components to faith. The first one is believing that God is. The second one is believing that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. And the third one is believing and living in such a way that God can entrust things to you, and you now can entrust your life and everything else to God. And so when the battle takes place in the mind, always remember the mind is dimensional. You have the intellect, which is the cognition, the issues of solving problems. You have the emotions, where you are responding from stimuli, experiences, or even images. Number three, the volition, When you have the volitionary powers, the volition then is the will. Are you being fought within the context of your volition where things are so out of sorts that you have a hard time making a choice or directing or coming to the point of deciding what it is you desire to do? And then not only in these dimensions can the enemy fight us, but he can also war with us in the context of the levels of our mind, the consciousness. Does he keep showing you things, or are you revealing things to you that cause you to become distant or become unapproachable, or even where your mind is preoccupied on other things? Does he continue to work through your subconscious where you are reflecting and where you are desiring to do, to achieve, but yet there's a context of war between you and what you would call the upper level consciousness? Or is he fighting you in your unconscious? Are thoughts still rising that trouble and that bring confusion to your heart, to your mind? Are thoughts still rising that you can't seem to get those thoughts out of your head, and they are causing a response of being afraid or doubting or backing up or detaching from relationships? And so when the war takes place in the unconscious, remember, it is the unconscious mind that is always searching and fueling even the literal brain to reimburse or to support what it is you deem to be important and what you deem to focus on. In many cases, because we are still battling with things from the past, what happens, our mind is reliving that stimuli, those events, over and over again. And the more you fuel those thoughts by thinking them, the more the brain will engage the reticular activating system, the small portion of the brain that gets you to believe what you're thinking and that gets you to continue to believing what you think. And so the reticular activating system that we sometimes call RA is the catalyst to keep you in the loop, thinking what you're thinking in the unconscious, getting you to keep finding reasons to adhere to what you're thinking. And so the war that takes place in the mind, the battle in the mind, is to get you off track of thinking and depending on the word and on God, and to move you into a constant state of thought processes that will always have you battling with the word, battling with God, battling with what even makes common sense to you. And so the battle is in the mind, and the battle is for your will. The battle is to get you to make a choice not to serve God, not to believe in the word, not to give your life to Christ, and not to think that you even need hope or help from Christ. And so this battle then for the mind is to transplant all of your thoughts and perspectives to the point where you can no longer turn and see what is common sense, what is valuable, what is needful, and what is drastically important to change your life. I am so sorry we are out of time. I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and this has been our daily Bible study. God bless you until the next time.